everybody, my name is Myra, this is Word Muse, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome. So, the month of May was a much better reading month than the previous month, which was, April. April, if you guys remember my last wrap-up, I only read 2 books, which was totally fine. It was just not a good reading month for me, but this month I read a total of, wait for it, 6 books. I don't even recognize myself. Who am I who reads 6 books within a month? I'm gonna just go ahead and say that right now. This is probably the best month I will have this entire year, 2017, because I don't read that much in any particular month, but I don't know what happened in May. That just happened. So anyway, let's get into it. So another side note for the 6 books that I read in the month of May is that 2 were actually nonfiction, 1 was poetry, and the remaining 3 were different genres of fiction. So I'm going to start with the 3 fiction ones, and I'm gonna move on to the nonfiction and then poetry. I think that's the route I'm gonna take, so let's try this out. So the first book that I'm gonna mention here is All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven. This is a YA contemporary that came out a couple of years ago already, and I audiobooked this on Audible. I believe I gave it a total of 3 stars. Let me double check. I gave it a total of 3 stars on Goodreads. It was not great, but it wasn't bad either. It was just an average book. So quick summary of this book. This book deals with these 2 teenagers that meet. They are in the same high school, but they belong to completely different groups of people. So the girl, I think her name was Violet, she was one of the popular girls, and the guy, his name was Theodore, I believe. Everybody said he was a weirdo, although by his personality traits I didn't understand why, because he seemed like a really cool guy, really. But anyway, they meet and they both suffer from mental illness. Violet suffers from depression after the death of her sister, which is not a spoiler because that's revealed like right off. And Theodore, it's mentioned throughout, but it's never really addressed that he has bipolar disorder, but it's just kind of like casually mentioned. So it's both of these characters coming together in very odd circumstances and helping each other out. So like I said, this book does deal with depression as well as with suicide, so trigger warning for that. Like I said, it was a 3-star type book. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great either. It was just okay. Moving on to the second book that I finished last month. I finished Room by Emma Donoghue. We read this for the book club that we have at work, and I really enjoyed this book. I gave it a 4 out of 5 star. It was really good. I have not watched the movie, and I tried not to research much about the book, so I kind of went in there just kind of knowing the very vague premise of it, which is that this woman and her 5-year-old son are locked out and someone shed. Of course, the someone happened to be who they refer to as Old Nick, who is a very, very bad man, obviously, that kidnapped the woman in the book. I don't remember her name because she's mostly referred to as Ma, because the book is also told from her son's point of view, who is 5 years old. So I really enjoyed this book. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. It was a book that it kind of took me a while to get into. I mean, it took me probably 30 pages or so to really get into and start enjoying it, but after I got past those pages, I just ate it up. It was so good. Also, since it is from a 5-year-old's point of view, the writing style is very unique. Like I said, at first it's hard to get into because you gotta get in the mindset of how a 5-year-old thinks and how his logic works, which is obviously not the same as an adult. But anyway, overall, found this completely fascinating. If you haven't read this, I totally recommend it, especially if you haven't seen the movie. So anyway, that's all I have to say about this because I don't want to spoil anything. And then the third fiction book that I read last month is The Call by Peter O'Gillen. So this book, I know it was the Book Explosion Book of the Month a couple of months ago. I didn't watch any of the reviews on it. Again, I went into this book completely blind. I had no idea what it was about. What I thought this book was about was something like When a Stranger Calls, you know, that movie from a couple of years ago where a stranger calls and then the babysitter's freaked out and he's trying to kill her. I thought that this book was that kind of book. I was in for a surprise because whoa, whoa, totally different. So this book gives kind of like a dystopian feel. It takes place in Ireland and is about Irish people and Irish folklore, so it's very interesting. So this book follows our main character Nessa, who has been affected by polio, and there's nothing that anybody can do about it. And so again, it follows her character as she grows into a teenager. So along with Nessa, we also see the points of view of various other teenagers when they receive the call. Now, to explain the call, I had to explain the seed. Sounds good. I listened to the audiobook, but I forgot. But it's like the fairy folk of the Irish. So these were fairies that were kicked out of our real world by the Irish ancestors. And so now these fairies live in what they call the Grey Land, which is a land without color and is pretty much terrifying. And these fairies are not nice or colorful or cute. They are terrifying. So anyway, our main character, Nessa, she's pretty cool. Again, she fights against all odds because, again, as we know, she suffers from polio, which means that she cannot walk or run as fast or as easy as her peers. So it's really cool to see the strong character that she develops and how determined she is to survive. One thing that I will say though about this book is that the main character, although unique, she does have a lot of aspects that a lot of other YA heroines share. Like, she's emotionally unavailable and everybody wants to either be her or be like her or date her. So again, the story just follows her and her approaching her call, and the whole book you're just waiting for her call because you just want to know what happens to her. Like I said, great book. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I was very pleasantly surprised by it. I was not expecting what I got, and it was a great thing. Also, if you liked The Hunger Games and you like Stranger Things, you will love this because this book is pretty much a child of these two other series if you merge them together. Moving on to the 2 nonfiction books that I happen to have read this last month. The first one of these is Unashamed by Christine Kane. This is actually a Christian living book. Usually I'm kind of a little more hard on these ones because most of them are like, really? But this one actually happened to be pretty good. It might have to do with the fact that I just have a bias towards Christine Kane because I just really love her as a person. So if you don't know, Christine Kane, she leads the Campaign 821 organization, which is an organization that fights against human trafficking around the world. Anyway, so this woman is just a natural born leader and she gets stuff done, and I follow her on Instagram and I just really like her personally. But anyway, this book, as the title suggests, focus on shame and how to deal with it. And so she talks about her life and her childhood growing up and just a lot of like the crap that happened to her. And she talks about how when she was a child she kept excelling on all this stuff, and because of her culture, because she is from Australia but her family is Greek, kept downplaying that. They were like, all you need to do is get married and make babies, and she was like, but I really like school and books and I have leadership skills, why can't I use that? So anyway, she goes through that and how she managed to kind of break the mold and become her own person. So it was really interesting. It was a really cool read. It's the first book that I read by her and I was pretty satisfied. I am looking forward to picking up another couple of her books because I know she has a couple of them out, but I think this is the last release that she had. So anyway, I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, but it's more like a 3.75 kind of book, but you know, Goodreads doesn't allow you to do that, so we get stuck with the whole stars. Anyway, overall, really enjoyed it, really liked it. Now, the second nonfiction book that I read last month is Bossypants by Tina Fey. This was another book that we read for our book club at work, and it was not a book that I loved. It was just like an okay type of book. If you haven't read this book mainly focuses on Tina Fey's life, obviously, but her being a working mother and her working amongst all these men, and how her and other women managed to work in this environment and how she succeeded, and how just her entire life story, starting from she was a child to the point that she started college and dating, and she started SNL and then 30 Rock. So anyway, it's just her life story and just her struggle with being a mom and being a working mother. I think that if you actually watch her shows and know more about her, you'd probably enjoy this book a lot more. I personally don't, so it was just an okay type of book for me. So anyway, I gave it a 3 out of 5. So it was just average. It wasn't bad, but I could have enjoyed it a lot more, and maybe if I watch more of her shows, maybe I would have. But I don't, so oh well. And finally, the last book that I read last month is a poetry book, like I said, and it is Coffee Black by Jamaica West. This is a debut poetry chapbook that she released. I think it was this year. It just came out and I bought it off of Amazon. It's not even in Goodreads yet, but I bought it because I went to an event where she did some spoken word, and it was really good, and so I decided to give it a try. It's very short, but I really enjoyed it. It is the first poetry collection that I have read either in my entire life or in a very long time, because I don't remember the last time I actually sat and read poetry, but I really enjoyed it. So this book focuses a lot on being a woman of color and living in the circumstances where she lived. Even though the situations that she writes about and my own are pretty different because we're just very different kind of people, I could relate to a lot of these more than I would have guessed. It's very good. It is very good. It's very beautiful. Again, it's the first one that I read, so I really have no margin to compare it to, but I really enjoyed it. So I don't know what that says, because like I said, I don't read a lot of poetry, but I really liked it. Anyway, if this wasn't Goodreads, I probably would have given it a 4 out of 5 because it's really good. So anyway, you guys, that's what I read last month. And I know I usually have another section at the end of my videos where I talk about what I'm currently reading or what I'm planning on reading, but I'm not gonna do that this time because I feel like this video is already really long because I talked about a lot of books. So anyway, that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to leave a comment down below if you have read any of these books, or if you would like to try out any of these books, and we can have a conversation about it down in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I will see you next time. Bye.